Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to head down to Austria once again and we're going to have a look at yet another of the Hans beers. So first and foremost, a massive shout out and thank you to Hans Feigl, my Austrian beer mule living in Vienna. It's thanks to him that from now on you guys are going to get to enjoy a steady stream of Austrian reviews here on Rampant Lion Reviews. And you know, as I've explained in the other Austrian reviews, there seems to be a very high standard of beer down there, but it's just very difficult to come across unless you actually go to Austria itself. And this is why I like building up a beer mule network, because we now have access to these beers fairly readily actually. So I hope that you guys watching down there are enjoying this mini series, and a huge thank you once again to Hans for making this review and the other Austrian ones possible. But you might have seen that recently he sent me a box filled with Viennese microbrewed Vienna lagers, and we've been working our way through those over the last few videos, but he also sent me a few other styles within that as well, and it's one of those that we're going to have a look at today. So we're going to leave the Vienna area for the first time from Hans box number 1, and we're going to go to a little place called Seefeld, which is closer to Salzburg actually, over the other side of the country. So we're having a look at my first beer from Bierschmiede. This one is the Werkstück. It comes in at 5.2% ABV, and this one is a Märzen lager beer. So if memory serves me correctly, this will be my first Austrian Märzen. But it's supposed to be a really good one, this. It's won a number of awards, and I think that was the main reason why Hans chose to send me this one. So yeah, really curious to see how this one turns out. Fingers crossed it's another good beer, but having seen the standard of the other stuff that Hans has sent me, I do have a high degree of confidence about this one. But yeah, let's crack on with this then and see how we go. So, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that hopefully I can do in the future from Bierschmiede. This is the very first time that I'm trying one of their beers, of course, but there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you happen to be interested in. Do check out the playlist of beers from different countries. There is one there for the Austrian beers that I've reviewed for you, and that's being added to quite gradually at the moment because we've still got a few of the Hans beers to work our way through. And as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Bierschmiede then, on to my brewery notes. So Bierschmiede, or Beersmith as it would translate into English, can be found in Seefeld, which is near Steinbach am Attersee, Attersee being a lake, which is out to the east of Salzburg. So the main man behind this company is Mario Scheckenberger, and he founded the company back in 2014. He'd spent a number of years in the marketing industry and actually worked with Brau Union for 13 years, who are known for a number of brands in Austria, including Gösser. But he had been a home brewer for about 16 years in addition to this, and he left Union at the end of 2014 to found his own company and brew his beers commercially. So the brewery is based in the Gustav Mahler Saal, which is the Gustav Mahler Hall, I guess we would translate it to, and this opened in the production started there. They opened up the brewery in July of 2015. So the company composes a brewery and restaurant, and it's also got an outdoor area as well, and they run the brewery as a family business, and Mario's wife Marlene and his father Josef are heavily involved in the day-to-day operations of the brewery and restaurant. But the brewery produces around 1,000 hectolitres per year, and a number of the beers have won a number of awards in recent times as well. But the name Bierschmiede, or Beersmith as it would be in English, takes inspiration from the fact that Mario's grandfather was a blacksmith in the local area. And as of July 2021, when I'm filming this review for you, according to Untappd, these guys have produced 26 different kinds of beer, and they seem to be mainly sort of German, Central European type styles of beer, but there are a few other things in there as well. There are one or two sort of English and American style beers have come out of this brewery as well. But yeah, that is all I could really find out about this brewery. They're very new, and there wasn't too much in the way of information on these guys. So yeah, that's all I can tell you for the moment, in fact. But yeah, if you want to learn a little bit more about them, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. But I would recommend you take a minute and Google Attersee, the lake, and it's very, very beautiful. I think generally speaking, Austria seems to be a very, very beautiful country. So I do want to go there and explore once again. I was there when I was about 7 or 8 or something like that, and it was just incredible, beautiful, beautiful place. So I do hope that I can get down there again and explore it a little bit more. I would love to just take a car and drive around the place and do it. So maybe that's something I'll do with my cousin at some point soon. But yeah, let's get on and actually have a taste of this beer then. So like I said to you at the start of the video, this one is a 5.2% Märzen. It also tells you a little bit about the fact that this beer is the Naturpark Attersee. Attersee Traunsee, sorry. But yeah, it tells you a little bit about the colour in this one, Bernstein and Farbe, so that's some kind of, I forget what stone Bernstein is, but yeah, Bernstone, whatever that is in colour, malty aroma in the nose, and it's also got a nice hoppy aroma as well, or a nice hoppy taste in the palate, I guess it's saying, and einfach süffig, so I think that means like easily drinkable, easily consumable. But there you can see the Bierschmiede, which is the beersmith, and of course it's just a play on words, beersmith, blacksmith, that's it. But yeah, Werkstück, this translates into English as like work tool, I guess you could say. But yeah, nicely presented, and you can also see the symbol of the nature park there as well. I'm not sure in Austria if a nature park, Naturpark, is the same as like a national park in Scotland or here in Sweden. But yeah, nicely presented anyway. So 330ml bottle, this one, and you can also see this is on the bottle cap as well. So I'll need to keep the bottle cap of this one from this one and add it to my ever-growing collection. But yeah, my first Märzen from Austria, 5.2% ABV. Now remember, this style is a lager beer. So lager beers, the definition of a lager beer is a cold temperature fermentation, 8 to 12 degrees Celsius. And ales of course ferment between 15 to 18 degrees Celsius normally, if memory serves me correctly. There's many different types of lager beers. The Märzen is one that used to undergo a long fermentation, usually from March until about October. They were used often in the Oktoberfest beers, and that was because beer brewing was banned during the summer. But a lot of the reason for that was because back in the day, before artificial refrigeration, they didn't have they didn't have the ability to ferment these things at the right temperature without digging rock cellars and things like this, or basically rock cellars you would call them, yeah. So yeah, that's why you also get many breweries in Central Europe having cellar bars and things like this. But yeah, the Märzen, usually an amber lager. There are a few similar styles, such as in the Czech Republic you would have the Letzak, and you also have the Vienna lager as well. For me, the Märzen tends to be a bit more kind of crisp, which is a characteristic of more German styles. We always find the German lagers to be a bit more kind of crisp than their Czech counterparts. So the Letzak compared to the Märzen is probably a little bit more kind of yeasty, if you like, and the Vienna lager is a bit more sort of oily and bready. It's kind of somewhere in between. I guess the Märzen is a bit more oily than the Märzen, and the breadiness is a little bit kind of, the breadiness is maybe a little bit thicker almost than the Czech Letzak, if you like. But yeah, let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the tasting then. Very curious to see what this one has in store for us. And do take those comments on the different lager beer styles with a bit of pinch of salt, of course. Those are just my kind of personal experiences. Some people might disagree with that, because obviously there will be people in Austria and Germany and the Czech Republic who are far more well versed in the intricacies of these styles than I am. I'm just an enthusiast whose hobby got out of control a little bit, should we say. But yeah, let's get the rest of that out and into the glass. There we go. So that is looking very nice. So before the head disappears on this one, because I think it's going to disappear fairly quickly, you can see that this beer has poured with about a quarter finger of a frothy, I would say kind of creamy coloured head there. But as we say, that is fading away to just be a very thin foamy layer, but it does have a nice kind of thicker foamy ring around the edge of the glass there. But in terms of colour, you can see this one is exactly what we would expect. But yeah, this one, it almost looks kind of similar to, like, a West Coast Pale Ale or something like this. This is, from memory, this is one of the kind of brighter Märzens that I've come across. It's also one of the slightly hazier ones as well, actually. So yeah, interesting stuff. But yeah, I think it's fair to describe this one as being a sort of light kind of a light light to medium amber colour. I think that's probably about fair. But yeah, 1 or 2 big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, a few little ones going up towards the bottom of the head there. But I think that overall it looks very, very nice. But remember, the colour of these beers depends on 1, the type of malts that you use, 2, the length of your wort boil. The longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker coloured beer. But the magnitude of the colour is determined by the type of malts that you use, and any barrel aging and adjuncts that you use with these beers will also play a role as well. But I think it looks very nice, as we say, and it does have a nice little bit of a kind of natural haze to it, which is good. Not filtered, I guess. But yeah, certainly it looks the part of a Märzen. And this one, as I say, one of the lighter ones I can remember having come across in recent times. But yeah, not much else we can really say about the appearance of this one. So let's take a closer look at the aroma then and just see how we get on with this beer. Really curious about it. Oh, that does smell nice actually. It smells very good. I'm going to say straight away, it almost has like quite a light, almost honey type character to it, which is interesting. It's got quite a bright brown sugary element to it, in my opinion. So, yeah. The aroma to this one is it's really interesting, in fact. So yeah, yeah, I would say that the how would you say, the kind of the first thing you're going to notice about this beer is that it has a nice smooth bready backbone to it. You do get a fair wee bit of breadiness out of this, which is quite interesting. So maybe this one is going to lean a little bit more towards the Czech Letzak rather than the German Märzen in a way, so we can say that. Because you have to remember, there are, between the German and the Czech lagers, there are counterparts there, you know, Helles to Letzak, I guess Märzen in a way, Helles to Svetli, Märzen to Letzak, Dunkel to Cherny, and then Schwarzbier to Tmavi. So you do have these beers that are very similar in style actually. And of course you've got Box and Doppelbox and various other things in there. But yeah, this is interesting, this one. This is a very nice smelling Märzen, I have to say. So, backbone of this beer has a lovely, bright, white bready character to it. You do get a wee bit of a kind of bread crusty element in there as well, which I think is great. 1 or 2 very slightly woody undertones to it as well. But on top of that, you can smell, there's a lot of biscuity character out of this one. It really smells like there's a little bit of honey in there, a nice little bit of a kind of sweet biscuity character as well. A lot of McVitie's digestive character for me. I'm not sure how good a reference that is for Austrians, but yeah, McVitie's digestive biscuit for me. And it is, as I say, just it's lovely in that sense. I really like how that side of the beer goes about its business. But yeah, what else can we say about that? I think that covers the malty side of it quite nicely. So yeah, a wee bit of sweet caramel in there, a little bit of a honey element, and also some nice kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity qualities. 1 or 2 little woody undertones, and yeah, I can really appreciate how that goes about its business, and a nice bready backbone actually. There are 1 or 2 little grainy elements I think come out of this beer the further that you go into the aftertaste with this. So it gets a thumbs up from me in that regard. I really like how this one goes about its business in that sense. So the malty yeasty side of things in this is quite nice, and there is almost a teeny little bit of spice to this one, which I do wonder if that's coming from the yeast, because it doesn't seem to be like woody in spice or too grainy in spice or anything like that. There is just a wee bit of something spicy in this beer, but I'm sure we'll figure that out in the flavour, because we can tell by where it comes out on the palate, I guess. But on the hoppy side of things, it's pretty much what you would expect. I mean, you know, the Austrians, of course, do have their own different varieties of hops, and I wouldn't be surprised if some of those are used in here. But yeah, the beer, on the hoppy side of things, there's a wee bit of a smooth earthiness to it. There's a little bit of a herbal quality in there as well. There's a nice floral aromaticity. The floral aromaticity, incidentally, comes across as very slightly spicy, so that could be something like Czech Žatec, Sats hops, or again, it could be an Austrian variety, I don't know. But you also get a nice little bit of a lighter grassy quality in there. I wouldn't describe the grassiness as being too zesty, but there is a little bit of that. And the fruity side of this beer is also very, very nice. So yeah, the fruity side of this one, I think, goes together really, really well. So yeah, I think the fruity part of this beer is really quite interesting actually. So yeah, it's, how would we describe this? It's a little bit almost sultana-like, you know, and by sultanas I mean, you know, dried white green grapes like raisins, but obviously raisins are the dark ones. So it's got a little bit of that to it. There's maybe, you know, you probably could argue there's a wee bit of a dried apricot-y type note to this one, definitely. But for me, there's a good little bit of a kind of peary. There's a little bit of a sort of peary note to this one, an oily peary character, and a little bit of an apple-y note in there as well. So yeah, I think the you know, I think the way that this beer goes about its fruity side of things, it's quite a dried fruity character you get out of this, in honesty. But yeah, sultanas, a little bit of pear. Yeah, you know, sultanas, a little bit of pear, and you know, a wee touch of a kind of apple-y note in there, maybe a little bit of apricot as well. So yeah, this is, I have to say, this is quite an interesting Märzen. It's not quite as straightforward and biscuity as some of the ones that I've come across before. It's a bit more bready, it's got a wee bit of a kind of spicy character to it, the hops are slightly different as well, and it's also got a wee bit of a different kind of fruity kind of thing too. So yeah, I have to admit, I think this one could turn out to be very, very interesting. So yeah, let's have a taste of this then and see how we get on. So this one is the Bierschmiede Werkstück, a Märzen beer coming in at 5.2% ABV from Bierschmiede in Seefeld near Steinbach am Attersee, near Salzburg. And I don't know if you could call that Central Austria, but anyway, let's have a taste of this beer and see how we go. And once again, thank you to Hans for making this review possible. Slàinte, skål, cheers, prost. Oh yeah, it's pretty nice, I have to say. Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty nice, I have to say. So thumbs up to Bierschmiede for this one. It is quite different to, you know, the standard Märzens that I've had before, and it does actually have a wee bit more of a kind of Czechy character to it, and in a way you can actually see a little bit of almost Vienna lager influence in this one. I don't know if the Märzens in Austria are maybe a bit more bready like this one, and this I suppose is always the thing, because the Vienna lager is, you know, everyone associates, you know, the Austrian lagers with the Vienna lagers, if that makes sense. But obviously there's a whole host of other things that go on there that we don't really hear of outside of the country. So, you know, you're always probably going to get this comparison between the Austrian lagers and then the German ones and the Czech ones. So yeah, I think this really is interesting. So I would be curious to know whether Austrian Märzens have a little bit more of the kind of bready and yeasty character, because that is a bit more akin to a Czech Leitzak, as we said earlier on. But you know, I've also had Märzens. They're quite popular in the Netherlands. When I was visiting my friend Thomas in the Netherlands recently, I had a few Märzens out of there, and those were actually really quite nice as well. They were quite similar to the German ones, but a little bit sweeter, I thought. So yeah, probably the Märzen style varies a little bit from country to country, but there is a wee bit of that kind of bready Vienna lager type influence in this one. You can definitely see that in this beer, but it gets a thumbs up from me. And I mean, it's good out of the bottle, but I can imagine on tap this one is even better. But yeah, I'm impressed with this. I do like this beer. So yeah, it's a very smooth lager, this one. It's got a wee bit of an oily slickness to it, and it has, as I say, it's got a nice bready backbone. It's a wee bit spicy, as we say, and I would go as far as saying that this is one of these beers where the aroma is a really good indicator of what the flavour is going to be. So let's try and break this down for you and describe it for you nicely. So straight away across the middle third of the palate and the back third of your palate, you can feel there is a wee bit of a kind of It feels like it's got a little bit of a sort of woody backbone to it, and it's a slightly spicy woody character that you get. But on top of that, you can feel there's a little bit of an almost kind of wholemealy, brown bready sort of thing, and it's a little bit sweeter. I mean, in the aroma, it gives you the impression of a more kind of white bread, and I would say that on, you know, if we're talking about the middle third of your palate, so you've got a slightly woody, spicy layer there, a nice kind of wholemealy, bready kind of note, white bready character on top of that. And yeah, I think that describes the backbone of the beer quite nicely. But then on top of that, you've got a little bit of a kind of circle in there where you've got the brown sugary elements to the beer. In the dead centre of the palate, you've got a sweeter, kind of oily caramel, I would say. So a nice little bit of a sweeter, oily caramel in there. Then as you move further out from that, it's got a little bit of a more kind of, I would say, biscuit. It's got a little bit more of a kind of biscuity, McVitie's digestive sort of thing to it. So you can feel that. So sweet caramel in the middle of the palate, actually maybe a more of a kind of honey quality as you move out a little bit more. But then as you reach the extremities of that middle third of your palate, it is a little bit more like that McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of thing, 100%. But yeah, I think that describes the middle third of the palate quite well on this one. So yeah, let's go to the let's go to the back third of the palate then. We'll look at the border region first, but border region between middle third and back third of your palate, again, you feel a nice little bit of a bready build up in there. There's a wee bit of a bread crusty quality, and the bread crusty notes are a little bit more kind of mellow on those border regions than they are in the base, because yeah, that base that I'm talking about, it's almost like a woody spice, but at the same time you could argue that that flavour is bread crust, I guess. But anyway, back third of your palate, woody base again, brown bready notes. I don't think you get so much of a white bread in this, but on top of that, you can feel the yeasty notes coming out of this beer, and it is almost like a kind of more airy and smoother kind of brown bread, if you like. So the yeasty notes actually play quite a role in this beer, and as I said, this beer does have a kind of slightly more yeasty vibe to it than the German Märzens that we've had. And we've had a few German Märzens recently, of course, but yeah, this one I think does lean a little bit more towards the Czech Svetli sort of, the Czech Lates actually, or not the Svetli. The Svetli is the Helles equivalent. Brain farts in these reviews, guys. So yeah, this one is a little bit like a Czech amber lager. I should say it's a little bit like that because it has a wee bit more of the yeasty quality in my mind. But yeah, obviously there are technical differences in the brew sheet and things between a Czech Latesack and a German Märzen as well. And of course the other factor, as we said earlier, is that the Austrians might have their own take on this particular style. But it's interesting for sure. But I think we've covered the malty, yeasty side of things there, other than the fact that we can say when you start at the back of the palate with this beer, you can feel the flavours quite tall, and it condenses down as you come further forward. Then into the middle third of the palate, it squashes down a little bit, and you can feel that it's a little bit smoother and things. So I really like how that goes together in this beer for sure. So that gets a thumbs up from me. Yeah, I think that covers your malty, yeasty side of things. Let's look at the hoppy part of the beer then. So, hoppy side of the beer. Back corners of the palate, you can definitely feel a nice little bit of a smooth earthiness in there. As you move further forward, it does actually become a little bit herbal, and as you reach the kind of front corners of the palate, there is a nice little bit of a slight kind of spicy floral aromaticity coming off the beer. Then round the front curve of the tongue, it's distinctly lighter. It's distinctly lighter and more grassy, and there is a wee touch of zestiness in there as well. But I do find the hoppy character in this beer quite smooth actually, and that is interesting. Sorry about the edit there, guys. What happened was my GoPro decided that it was actually not going to film the third segment of the video. So when I went to edit it together, there was 2 segments left, and that was it. I'm honestly getting sick and tired of this GoPro. I need to replace it, so that'll be happening soon. But anyway, where the video cut off was when I was just about to describe the fruity flavour of this beer. So let's just go for it again. So front third of your palate with this beer. As I always say, on top of that, that's where you get that nice oily bubble where those juicy fruity esters roll their way out of the beer. So the border region in this beer, between front third and middle third of your palate, you get a nice bit of bready build up there again, and you get a wee bit of that kind of, how do you say, you get a little bit of that sort of more bread crusty kind of quality there as well. But the base of the front third of your palate in this one, yeah, the base of the front third of your palate in this one is again a nice kind of smooth white bready character, but you can feel one or two little kind of grainy brown bready elements under there, and a wee bit of that sort of woody thing that we talked about earlier on as well. So that's quite nice. But the fruity part of the beer itself, if you go to the back of that front third of your palate, you get a little bit more of a kind of dried fruity kind of element to it. So you can argue, you could say that there's a wee bit of an apricot-y note in there, but you also get a bit of a kind of sultana type flavour as well, you know, those dried white, green, grapey notes. So you definitely get a bit of that. But as you move further forward towards the front half of that front third of your palate, that's where you get the more oily kind of elements to it. So definitely a wee bit of a more oily, peary character coming out of this beer. And then there's maybe just a wee tiny bit of a slightly spicy apple behind the very kind of front tip of your tongue. So bear that in mind with this one. But the fruity character in this one really leans towards the more kind of dried fruity side of things. But yeah, fruity part of this beer I think goes together really nicely, and with that lighter grassy note that you've got around the front edge of your tongue there, I think it works really, really nicely. So yeah, it gets a big thumbs up from me in that regard on the in terms of how the fruity side of the beer goes together with that nice smooth hoppy element in there. As I say, I do wonder if there are local Austrian hops in this, because the green component does feel a little bit different in this one. But yeah, you can see my glass is chilled, because when I realised the video hadn't quite worked, I put the beer back in the fridge and it's cooled down very, very quickly. So bear that in mind with this video as well. Honestly, can't describe to you how angry I am with this GoPro, because it keeps doing stuff like this. I wish I'd never bought the bloody thing. But yeah, the fruity side of this beer is quite nice. It really leans towards that dried fruity side of things. But let's round off the review then with the mouthfeel. So mouthfeel wise, having to sip on this beer now because it's very little of it left when I realised this had happened. But yeah, the mouthfeel of this beer, I would say this one is, you know, it's towards the top end of light bodied. The carbonation is quite smooth on it. It's got a nice kind of it's got a slightly slick and oily character to it, which is quite nice. So top end of light body, slightly slick and oily. You would kind of expect this from a Märzen beer. But as I've said throughout this video, this one is a slightly more kind of yeasty take on the Märzen. So you've got that kind of slightly spicy, woody kind of base to this one, a bit more of a kind of grainy, bread crusty note to it. And that's what I was saying. That's the part I was talking about that is a little bit more akin to a Vienna lager. If you like, you do have a bit of that kind of crusty, bready sort of thing in there, which is a wee bit more prominent. But you can also feel this one is slightly more yeasty, and that makes it a little bit more akin to a Czech Leitzak in a way. So this beer is quite interesting, and I do wonder if the other Austrian Märzens are like this as well. So it's got a wee bit of that more bready note that you would expect of the Vienna lager, kind of slightly sweeter brown bready note, but it's also got the slightly more, as you say, it's got a little bit more of that kind of yeasty Czech type quality to it. So it's really interesting in that sense. So lovely kind of slightly bigger malty and yeasty profile to this one. The hoppy character in this beer, as we said, is quite smooth. I'd estimate that this one is about 20 IBUs, but remember, my IBU counts are always my weakest point. That is my weakest point of beer reviewing. So yeah, take my IBU counts with a pinch of salt, but I think this is a fairly standard 20 IBU lager beer, this one. It doesn't really build in bitterness the further you go into it. It does remain quite smooth, but there is a wee bit of bitterness, as I say, at the back of the palate, and you've got a wee bit of that slightly spicy, kind of grainy note in the malty side of things too, which could give the impression of a slightly higher bitterness. But yeah, fruity side of the beer, as we said, it's quite oily on the fruity side of things, but it gives you that more kind of dried, fruity type flavour. But yeah, I think that rounds off the mouthfeel quite nicely with this one. But this is a really, really interesting beer. It's certainly been a different experience of the Märzen. So I think in the next box that I get from Hans, I might ask him to pick out another Märzen or two for me so I can try them and sort of compare them to the experience we've had with this. So if this one is anything to go by, it seems that the Austrian Märzens are a little bit more kind of bready and grainy, but also a little bit more kind of yeasty than their German counterparts. So they've got a bit of the Czech yeasty kind of quality to them, but they've got a little bit of the more kind of bready, grainy Austrian Vienna lager sort of thing going on as well. So that's an interesting take-home message from this one. But yeah, I think that's a nice. Sorry about that again, guys. The camera just decided it was going to stop filming. I'm honestly getting so fed up of this GoPro. Never buy one, guys. Honestly, complete waste of money. But yeah, we were just about to round off this review anyway. So this one is the Werkstück, a 5.2% Märzen beer from Bierschmiede in Steinbach am Attersee near Salzburg in Austria. A really interesting experience, this one, and I hope that you guys enjoyed my take on this beer. So thank you again for watching. Check out my social media. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know some other Austrian Märzens that I should check out, and hopefully we can have a look at them in the next Hans box. We'll see about doing that. But thank you for watching. Check out my social media, check out Bierschmiede's social media, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Slàinte, skål, cheers, and see you very, very soon.